up, Whatty Nerdigans? This is the one and only Packer Girl 89, and today's book nerdigan discussion video is on Teardrop by Lauren Kate. If you have not read Last Day of Love or Teardrop, or watched the book nerdigan discussion video on Last Day of Love, why the commie Narcissus are you here? Seriously, go read the book, go watch the video, and come back here so we can talk about it. I'm telling you right now, be ready. Next book nerdigan discussion video is going to be a rant. So I recommend paying attention to this one, nerdigans, because a lot of the stuff that's in this video is and the previous video is going to come up. I'm sorry, Lauren. You gave me no choice. But anyway, as you know, this is not an Angel Readathon book nerdigan video because I just did a bunch of Lauren Kate Angel book nerdigan discussion videos from the Fallen series. I had to do the rest of the Lauren Kate books because, yeah, that's just how I am. That's just the book nerdigan in me. Anyway, here's the beautiful cover. Let's get to it. Thank you, Minnie Popo. So the prologue takes place in Louisiana. And this is where the story is basically taking place. So, if you didn't read Last Day of Love, you learn who Ander is in this one as well, and he's a seed bearer. And wave crafting, we find out that wave crafting is an element of seed bearers, and their cultivated power is also the Zephyr. It's part of that too. And it wasn't dominance over water, but it's rather an ability to manipulate the wind, whose currents were a mighty force upon the ocean, which I think is pretty awesome. And Ander had been raised to revere the Zephyr as divinity. And though its origins were murky, it had been born in a time and place about which the elder seed bearers long spoke. And for months they had been spoken only of their certainty that the right wind under the right water would be powerful enough to kill the right girl. And who the seed bearers made him stalk/study since the leap day she was born. And Ander is in love with her, but he's never spoken to her, but has to kill her. And if you've watched or read Last Day of Love, you know who we're talking about here. All he had to do was watch, and his fan made that clear. The wave would strike, the car would flow with it over the bridge, like a blossom spilling over a fountain's rim, and they would be swept to the depths of the sea. If that failed, then Ander would have to kill her. And the seed bearers were stewards of humanity, preventers of apocalypse. They were generating an act of God. And seriously, Ander has one strong-ass anchor, and there's no turning back once you start killing yourself, brah. Seriously. And no matter how strong the wave was, the chain would not break, because the anchor would not be wrestled from the seafloor. So the chain from the anchor was made of orichalcum, and that's an ancient metal considered mythological. And the anchor on its chain was one of 5 relics made of the substance that seed bearers preserved. And the only things left were an anchor, a spear, a talitol. I want to know what the fuck that is, because that's not really mentioned what that is. Lacrimatory, which that doesn't get mentioned either. A vial. Why would you need a vial made? Oh, well, I guess you would use a vial made out of orichalcum for like acids and shit. And the small carved chest that glowed a natural green. We're gonna see that next book, actually. And yay, I'm so happy that, I was happy that Ander saved Eureka. It made me so happy. But Diana had to die, which was her mother, which was really sad. So now we're getting to the main story, which is 4 months later, and Eureka is now half deaf, and she attempted suicide via oxycodone overdose because she felt that there was nothing worth living for, and she had to spend 2 weeks in the psych ward. And yeah, I've been there. I understand. And she did the same thing I did. She basically told the doctor she wanted to live and wouldn't try it again. Yeah, I'm telling you nerdigans right now, especially those who feel depressed, don't try killing yourselves and go to the psych ward. It's not worth it. It's terrible. Don't do it. Just deal with it. Anyway, so this is 6 weeks after going back to school. It was back to therapy. Fucking A. Therapy is terrible. I understand Eureka's. I sympathize with Eureka on that. I hate therapy. Therapy is so freaking pointless to me. And that's why YouTube is my therapy. So, yeah, I express all my shit on YouTube. So, thank you, YouTube. Anyway, so poor Eureka, like, her car basically, she named it Magda, is destroyed. And then she meets Ander. Ander's so freaking hot, and she has a fender bender with Ander, and it's a Chevy, of course. And Eureka was about to cry, and she misses her mom, plus frustrated on how much of a smartass Ander is being. I love Ander. I love how much of a smartass he is. And the sky rumbled and reverberating inside Eureka the way the biggest thunderstorms did, and dark clouds rolled across the trees, sealing the sky with a green-gray storm. And Eureka braced for a downpour, and Ander caught the tear on his index finger and very slowly carried the drop away from her toward his own face. And he pressed it into the corner of his right eye. Then he blinked, and it was gone. That is extremely important. Remember that tear. It's going to come back. There now, no more tears. I just thought that was so cute. I just love Ander. So now we got Big Gene, who called for the tow truck, and the only thing meaner, I love what he said, I thought that was hilarious. The only thing meaner than the first Rita was the second Rita. One stayed in my house, the other tore it down. I thought that was funny. I was like, when Corey towed the car, I was like, what the fuck? I can't believe he said this. He says, okay, sister, haul it in the cab. Us coon asses gotta stick it together. I was like, what? I've heard the word coon before, but I've never heard white people say coon like that. I never heard white people call other white people coon. So that was just weird. But anyway, and he got denied, and of course he got denied, and Ander gave her a ride. And Ander visited the school, and he raced Eureka in the school track meet. And then we meet Kat and her brother Barney, and they are our token blacks of this series. And Eureka was starting to freak the fuck out about the track team picture, and it began to rain, because yeah. And also, Ander can walk in the rain and remain dry. Remember, this is important, because seafarers can stay dry. And we have an Akko taco moment, because Brooks and Eureka were about to go out when Claire says Anders is at the door. And, oh my god, me and Arceus. You nerdigans know I'm a sucker for blue eyes. Oh, the turquoise eyes. Oh, God, me and Arceus, I love her. I'm a sucker for blue eyes. And Brooks is getting all possessive, and Anders was just there to give Eureka her wallet back and slipped in his phone number for the car. And Anders is gelling like hell. He says, I give her a lift back to school, but I don't see what it has to do with you unless you rather she walk. And how long have you been with her? How long? And Brooks says, long enough to know that assholes aren't her type. I was like, oh, burn! And don't worry, Anders saw that Eureka was about to have a panic attack and calmed down. Like, seriously. And, oh, Brooks, like, for what it's worth, I would love a ringtone of you singing. Your voice is enchantingly off key. There's nothing about you I could ever hate. And, like, seriously, her stepmom, I have to say, is a fucking bitch. She is, Rhonda. So Anders scrolled a note with his name and number and the words, I'm sorry. I thought that was so sweet. And then Diana's lawyer, Mr. Fontenote, I did not know Diana well. She contacted me 2 weeks before her death to file this copy of her last will and statement. There isn't much here. And there was a safe deposit box at the New Iberian Savings Loan. And here we go. So to Mr. Walter Beau de Langy, your sister Diana bequeaths to you the contents of her bank account, minus the monies used for funeral expenses. There's a sum total of $6,413, as well as this letter. Miss Maureen de Langy, Lijon, excuse me. Diana wishes for you to take possession of your mother's jewelry, costume stuff mostly, and Diana also bequeathed to you her car, though unfortunately the vehicle is irretrievable. As well, there is this letter written by Diana. Now, Miss Eureka Bordeaux, your mother bequeaths to you the following 3 items. This bag contains a locket. She also directed that you were to receive this book. And her dad says, I remember that book. Your mother loved it, and I never knew why. She used to keep it at her bedside, even though she couldn't read it. She picked it up at a swap meet in Paris. She didn't even know anything else about it. And once for her birthday, I paid one of her archaeologist friends $50 to carbon date it. The thing didn't even register on their scale. And then the lawyer says one more thing for Eureka. Something your mother calls a thunderstone. Seriously, quick. Get me, I was thinking quick, get me a freaking Eevee or I would rather have a Jolteon than a freaking Raichu. Seriously, get me a freaking Eevee, damn it. You also have a letter. And the key thing from the letter, but seriously, if you want to know what the full letter says, go read the freaking book. This is what she said. Hold on to the Thunderstone. It's puzzling but powerful. Wear my locket when you yearn to have me near. Perhaps it will guide you. And enjoy the book. I know you will. P.S. about the Thunderstone. Beneath the layer of gauze lies a worked stone artifact shaped like a triangle. Some cultures call them elf arrows. They are believed to ward off storms. Thunderstones are found among the remains of most ancient civilizations throughout the world. This particular thunderstone's origin is unknown, which makes her all the more dear to those who give themselves permission to imagine the possibilities I did, will you? And P.P.S. Don't unwrap the gauze until you need to. You'll know when the time comes. And nope. And then afterwards they find Ander is not in the Man or Track team. And while on the beach, citronella candle-smelling wave came after Eureka and the twins, and then it stopped. And Brooks was like, did you see me body surf on that shit? I started laughing. I was like, wow. And then Brooks kissed Eureka, and after Eureka asked why it took so long, Brooks became a total ass and called her an attention whore. Seriously, bye-bye, asshole. Go back to Maya. And this is a key thing, because... I'm going to rant about some shit like this in Waterfall, because I don't fucking understand this. And then Kat's Fling Ronnie mentions this woman named Madame Yuki Blavatsky. She's a little eccentric, a self-taught expert in dead languages, and makes her living telling fortunes, and just ask her to look at the text. And don't let her rip you off. She'll respect you more. Whatever she asks for, offer half and settle for a quarter less than her original price. And then they get to Madame Blavatsky, and she says this is a family tomb. Family tombs stay within the family line unless there are tremendously unusual circumstances. Even under such circumstances, it is nearly impossible a book like this would fall into the hands of someone who would sell it at a flea market. This is not the stuff of swap meets. The most recent owner reads Diana. Your mother inherited this book from someone named Niobe, and Niobe received it from someone named Bibulus. I can inscribe your name at the end of the list, seeing as the tomb is now yours, no extra charge. And this is similar to old Magdalenian script, though there are differences. Vowels are absent. The spellings are quite absurd, very ancient, found in those prehistoric caves in southern France. This is not a sister to Magdalene, Linian, but perhaps it is a second cousin. Languages have complicated family trees, mixed marriages, stepchildren, even bastards. Sorry, I thought that was funny. There are countless scandals in the history of languages, many murders, much incest. It's very rare to find such a text. It will not be easy to translate. It might be dangerous. Not just power. Power corrupts. Corruption brings shame and ruin. Ignorance may not be bliss, but it's perhaps preferable to a life lived in shame. Madame Blavatsky is going to charge originally $7.50 per page and will email the translated pages. Yeah, so the translated title is called The Book of Love and will only include supernatural or super important portions. So, yeah. So here's the story of Selene. That's what I'm only going to include. Anyway, so in the beginning, the island stood beyond the Pillars of Hercules, alone in the Atlantic. Legends told of a city with an astonishing designs, waterfalls ringed with unicorns and twin princes maturing inside the castle's ivory walls. The elder prince and would-be king's name was Atlas. The younger prince was called Leander and was rarely seen from an early age. He found his passion in voyaging by sea. And yay, Brooks and Eureka are friends again, but we need more Anders. Like, I was getting annoyed. I was like, we need more Anders, Coffee, damn it. But anyway, and then Anders is at the field trip waiting for Eureka, and Eureka says, I say one word to any teacher in here, and you're handcuffed like a stalker. And Anders says, will they use the bronze handcuffs? And I started laughing. Like, Anders is such a smartass, and I love it. And Anders finding, Narcissus, similar to Selene finding the prince kneeling near the river in a patch of narcissus flowers. And Anders says, Eureka, you're in danger. It's your friend Brooks. He's dangerous. Brooks has changed. He's not your friend anymore. The metamorphosis began last Saturday when you went to the beach. Why do you think you got in a fight that evening? Why do you think he blew up after you kissed? Would the Brooks you know, would your best friend have done that? Why else wouldn't Brooks apologize apologize to you for a day after your fight? What took him so long? Is that the way a friend behaves, Eureka? Brooks will hurt you, and he isn't the only one. And no, Aileen's not involved, but she is worried about Brooks, and last night she searched his room for drugs. Actually, the two of them had a screaming fight last night. All the neighbors heard it. You might try asking one of them if you don't trust me, or ask yourself why else would his mother have stayed up all night baking cookies? Because I can stop Brooks. I can help you if you'll let me. If I leave you alone, you'll die. And then Kat says this, Brooks interrogated me about your emotional state today. Yeah, he asked about Diana, only it was weird. He called it, I remember, because he said it twice, the killing of Diana. I remembered him, I reminded him of the rogue wave, and then he was all, well, that's what it was. She was killed by a rogue wave. It creeped me out. Like he was dressed up as Freddy Krueger 3 years ago in a row, or wait, not 3 years ago, 3 years in a row for Halloween. I was so happy that, and then Ander comes to the rescue, plowing into a Suzuki that Eureka almost hit, and they were, they were gray people with glowing eyes. And then he says, leave her. And when the women cackled, Ander reached into his pocket, and Ander pulled out a silver case about the size of a jewelry box. He then thrust it into toward the people in gray, and slowly Ander flipped open the lid, and an acid green glow emanated from within the case, brightening his face and the dark space around him. The green light inside was nearly blinding. A sharp, untraceable odor stung her nostrils, dissuading her from perceiving any deeper. So now we're getting to more translation from the Book of Love here. So after the king died, Atlas was to be wed to Selene, and Selene was confined to her chambers, but she didn't love him. The wedding date was set, and Atlas still had not proposed to me. I was confined to my chambers, a splendid prison whose iron bars were velvet covered. And then Leander say, tears suit you even less vulgar than a crown. Do you love him? Yes, love that which makes a life worth living, that which arrives to carry us where we need to go. And then Selene shook her head. Then there's hope. Back from 5 years traveling in the name of the crown. Though my own brother would have had the kingdom think that I was lost at sea. Then you, Selene, had to go and discover me. And then they kissed. I love the writing too. And I love this writing so much. Until that moment, I had not known bliss. I would have stayed locked in his kiss forever, but a memory returned to me. And then Leander said this, I never loved it till I found you. I was like, oh, this is cute. And then Polaris led Madame Blavatsky's bird, led Eureka to Madame Blavatsky for the translation. Only one thing stood between Selene and Leander and a universe of love. Her name was Delphine, and she loved Leander with all her being. Years earlier, I had stumbled accidentally upon Delphine embracing Leander in the moonlight pressed against a tree. And Leander said, I saw you in the moonlight. I had seen you many times. Delphine had me spellbound, but I swear I never loved her. I fled the kingdom to be free of her enchantment. I came home hoping to find you. And on the eve of Selene's wedding to the king, Leander and Selene were eloping and escaping to his waiting ship. Selene's aunts and cousins, 100 gossip witches, say this: flee, cursed lovers. You cannot outrun your destiny. Doom decorates your hearts and will forevermore. Fear her heartbreak and maiden tears that bring oceans crashing into earth. Fear the tears that seals worlds off from space and time. Fear the dimension made of water known as woe, where the lost world will wait until the rising time. Then fear its return, all because of tears. And then Leander says, I will go to her, basically go to Delphine, and make amends before we sail. We must live unhaunted. It's the only way I will feel free to love you like I want to. As soon as I say goodbye, I will return. And this is what Madame Blavatsky says. I believe I have an understanding of the origins of this text. This book was written by an Atlantean sorceress, a woman born of the lost island of Atlantis thousands of years ago. I believe Selene was an inhabitant of the island. According to Plato's Critias and Timaeus, Atlantis was an ideal civilization in the ancient world until, some girl got her heart broken and cried the whole island into the sea. And now we got to Anders' challenge here. So if you could prove this impossible hypothesis, would you trust me then? The stone your mother left when she died, try getting it wet. My hypothesis is you won't be able to. If it turns out I'm right, will you promise to trust me? Look, I'll throw in an incentive. If I'm wrong about the stone, if it's just a regular old rock, I'll disappear and you'll never hear from me again. I promise. Do it by yourself. No one else can know what you have. Not your friends, not your family, especially not Brooks. You can't trust him. I hope you can see that now. And then when Eureka poured the water on the Thunderstone, the water splashed back in her face, and in the sink the water was repelled in the air above and around the stone. And then finally, after Eureka put the stone in her hand and in the bayou and an air bubble formed around it, did she say, okay, Ander, you win this round, Ander. And then when Polaris led Eureka to Madame Blavatsky's office again, it was completely ransacked. In the apartment, she had been beaten, shredded, stabbed repeatedly in the chest by something that left much larger slashes than a knife, and she'd been left to bleed out on the floor. Oh, poor Madame Blavatsky! Ah! And during the sailing trip, they went sailing, and Brooks went missing at sea, and the Thunderstone saved Eureka and the twins. Thank Kami and Arceus for the Thunderstone. She started wearing it around her neck in a locket. And after a long hug from Ander, I'm so relieved you're alive, and he gave her back the Book of Love. A little bird showed me where to find it. Your translator's insight was impressive. She had the sense to bury your book in her notebook under a willow tree by the bayou the night before she was... I'm sorry, I know what it says. I grew up with a version of the story. And Eureka read aloud, sometime, somewhere in the future's remote nook, a girl will come into being and meet the conditions to commence the rising time. Only then will Atlantis return. The girl must be born on a day that does not exist, aka Leap Day, as we Atlanteans cease to exist. When the maiden tear was shed, she must be a childless mother and a motherless child. Finally, her emotions must be tempered, must brew like a storm too high in the atmosphere to be felt on earth. She must never cry until the moment her grief surpasses what any mortal being can bear. Like she's doing that, sounds like Eureka. Then she will weep and open up the fissure to our world. One night into our voyage, a violent storm will split our ship. I washed upon a nearby shore. I never saw my prince again. Oh, poor Celine! I do not know if he survived. The witch's prophecy is the only lasting remnant of our love. Then finally, frickin' Ander and Eureka kissed. Oh my God, me and Arcee. It happened the way the sun rose, the way a flower blossomed, the way rain fell from the sky, the way the dead stopped breathing. Naturally, inevitably, his lips were firm, slightly salty. They made her body flush with heat. That's why I don't understand. That's why I don't understand. Why would you want Brooks as any more than a friend? Seriously. Why? Why? Ander says, if I could have saved you both, I would have. I had to choose. I chose you. If you can't forgive me, I understand. The Thunderstone is very powerful. It belongs to you, Eureka. Always remember that. You must protect it. And then Ander says on the locket, the oxidation is cosmetic. That shouldn't prevent the locket from opening because Diana had it sealed. I think I can unseal it. In fact, I know how. Maybe it contains, oh yeah, she didn't put the Thunderstone in her locket yet, in the locket. Maybe it contains something she didn't want anyone to see. Your mother knew the power of their heirlooms. She would have been afraid of having them fall into the wrong hands. Her faith in you survives her. She left you these because she trusted you to discover their significance. She was right about the book. You got to the heart of the story. She was right about the Thunderstone. Today you learned how powerful it can be. And in the locket is a picture of Diana holding 6-month-old Eureka and a paper with the word Maurice, which is the Cajun French word for marsh. And this is why, another reason why Waterfall's gonna piss everybody off. If it hasn't, I'm very surprised. So there's a four slash marked under the skin below Anders' rib cage. They aren't cuts, they're gills for breathing underwater. Yes, Brooks has them now as well. And the difference between you and me is that from the moment I was born, I have been raised with the story you found on these pages. I don't exactly have parents. I was raised by my aunts and uncles. I am a seed bearer. My people come from the lost continent of Atlantis. My line was among the few who escaped from the island sank. Since then, our mission has been to carry forward the seed of Atlantis' knowledge so that its lessons will never be forgotten, its atrocities never be repeated. For thousands of years, this story has stayed among the seed bearers. We knew your mother possessed some knowledge of Atlantis, but my family still has no idea how much. The person who murdered your translator was my uncle. The people you encountered at the police station and on the road that night, those people raised me. I haven't been home in weeks. My family and I had a disagreement because you are also a descendant of Atlantis, and the women in your lineage carry something very unusual. It's called the Selena Clamata Desmos. That means more or less Selene's tear line. Again, this is why Waterfall is gonna piss me the fuck off. And piss you the fuck off too. She is your matriarch many generations back, just as Leander, her lover, is my patriarch. It is said they search for each other until their dying day, and even some say after death. One of Selene's descendants carries the power to raise Atlantis again. This is what you just read in the book. This is the tear line. The seed bearer's reason for existing hinges on the belief that raising Atlantis would be a catastrophe and apocalypse. The legends of Atlantis are ugly and violent, filled with corruption, slavery, and worse. The seed bearer's goal is to prevent the return of Atlantis from ever happening by killing the girl with the tear line. If Eureka weeps, if Eureka weeps, the world would flood and Atlantis would return to power. It hasn't happened in nearly a century since the 30s, but that was a very bad situation. When a girl begins to show signs of the tear line, she becomes a kind of vortex. She piques the interest of more than just the seed bearers, the Atlanteans themselves. They are evil. The last possessor of the tear line lived in Germany. Her name was Bibulus, and Bibulus was your mother's great aunt. And while the seed bearers try to eliminate a tear line, the Atlanteans try to activate it. They do this by occupying the body of someone dear to the tear line carrier, someone who can make her cry. And by the time the seed bearers succeeded in murdering Bibulus, the Atlantean who had occupied the body of her closest friend was already invested in the world. He stayed in the body even after Bibulus's death. We don't know how Atlas learned to channel his sorcerer power. He's not a sorcerer himself, but he had managed it. So Brooks, yeah, he's possessed by Atlas in Atlantis. That's the main thing. So Anders says this: Atlantis has been underwater for thousands of years. We can't access them, and they can't access us. And from the moment Atlantis sank, mind channeling has been their only portal to our world. Thus, Atlas hopes to change that. Okay, so something else is that besides Atlas hopes to change the portal to the world, because right now Atlantis, because Atlantis is sank, the only way they have access to the waking world, or basically our world, is through mind channeling, and Atlas wants to change that. But Diana didn't have a tear line at all. She didn't have a tear line, but she knew that Eureka did, and her entire life's work was centered on preparing her for her destiny. And her dad doesn't have a clue. And here's Ander as well. One sea bear power is kind of a natural camouflage. We live among mortals, but they don't really see us. We blend, we blur. No one remembers our faces unless we want them to. Or unless we went to them, excuse me. By the time Diana died, I was so desperately in love with you, I couldn't handle it anymore. I drove into your car at the stop sign. I needed you to see me finally. Every moment of your life, I have fallen even more deeply in love with you. God damn it! Waterfall pisses me off so much! Just know that even as I've begun to distrust everything I was raised to believe, there's one thing I am certain of, my devotion to you. It will never fade, Eureka. I swear it. And Eureka responds with a kiss. But there's something suspicious. Is that why the fuck isn't Ander aging? God, it felt so good to say that out loud. For my whole life, I felt alone. And Eureka says, you're with me now. Ander says there's one person who might help us. I've never met him. He was born a sea bear, but he defected from the family after Bilbilus was murdered. My family says he never got over her death. But you know what I just realized? I wonder, keep this in mind. I wonder if it's because Ander is 18? If that's why he isn't aging rapidly. Keep that in mind. He might not be aging rapidly because he's 18. There you go. Maybe if he was older, he would be aging rapidly. So there's that logic. They say he was in love with her. His name is Salon. None of the sea bears have spoken to him in years. The last I heard, he was in Turkey. We could go track him down. You have to survive because I won't live in a world without you. Oh, I love Ander so much. And Ander spent the night. I love Ander. And he says, I'm not leaving you. And at 6 a.m., he says, wake them up, basically, your family up. I'll tell everyone the plan as soon as we're together. It's better if there aren't too many questions. We'll need to move quickly. We are going to find Salon, the lost sea bear. Luckily, I salvaged a boat yesterday. We sail as soon as your family is ready. There will come a time when you will know the entirety of Brooke's true fate. For everyone's sake, I hope that is a long way off. In the meantime, you must try to move on. And now Eureka figures out that Brooks is possessed by Atlas about freaking time! Like, I wanted to slap freaking Eureka! Like, I was just thinking, holy fucking Luya, that she freaking figured it out. God! And then Dad spots Ander too soon. It's like, freaking camo, Ander. Camo! Why did you use the camo? But anyway, and then Eureka's dad says, your mother said that someday something might happen. Your mother was prone to delirium, and she said she'd be out with you at the park or some store buying clothes. And this was back when you were little, always when the two of you were alone. It never seemed to happen when I was there to see it. She'd come home and insist that impossible things had occurred. It was like she would fall into a fever. She'd repeat the same thing over and over. I thought she was ill, maybe schizophrenic. I never forgotten what she said. She said, today I saw the boy who's going to break Eureka's heart. Why would Ander break Eureka's heart, Diana? You were 4 years old. It was absurd, but she wouldn't let it go. Finally, the third time it happened, I made her draw me a picture. I kept that picture in my closet. I don't know why she'd drawn this sweet-looking kid, 6 or 7 years old. Nothing disturbing in the face, but in all the years we lived in town, I never saw that boy until the likeness is unmistakable. He's the same as he was in the drawing, just grown up. And then the sea bear shows up. And if you're looking for your children, step outside. We'd be happy to arrange an exchange. Motherfucker! They got the twins! And the sea bear says, and then Ander says, in their immediate vicinity, sea bears have power over wind. One of the more common ways it's used is to create atmospheric buffers. The buffers are called cordons. They can be any shape and many magnitudes. Sea bears don't like to get wet if they can help it, and they can almost always help it. And then he says, Saratia, so we used to be close. He used to be almost human. Starling, she feeds on vulnerability. Show none. Albion, the leader. No matter what happens, do not take his hand. Chora, don't be fooled by her appearance. Every scar on my body comes from her. Almost. And she crafted that wave that killed your mother. And the Seed Bearers killed Rhonda! Like, she didn't deserve that. Even though she was a bitch earlier in the book, she didn't deserve that. And then Ander has a gun, and he says, this gun fires bullets made by Artemisia. It's an ancient herb, the kiss of death for Seed Bears. Seed Bearer breath is controlled by a single higher wind. It's called the Zephyr, and each of us is bound to it. If one of us is killed, all of us die. But maybe it's better that way. And then finally, we have Eureka crying, and the yard floods, and Ander and Eureka get Dad, the twins, and Kat in the shield, because Kat shows up earlier in the scene. But anyway, and then Ander says there is a passage near the end of the Seed Bearer Chronicles that my family refused to talk about. They never wanted to anticipate this happening. It says the one who opens the fissure to Atlantis is the only one who can close it, the only one who can face the Atlantean king. When you face Atlantis, you're going to need to be prepared. I believe Solon can help you. And now we're in the epilogue, and we have a Brooks POV, which I love that we have a Brooks POV. So, hold on a second. I scrolled too far down. Here we go. So, when Atlas possessed Brooks, he calls it the plague, which I love it. I love that he calls it the plague. So, it's 14 days of enslavement had taught Brooks that the plague needed him for his memories. And this is how it ends. So Brooks would not have kissed Eureka on his own. He cursed the plague for that. But for a moment, a long, glorious moment, every future ounce of sorrow had been worth having Eureka's mouth on his. No! Ander belongs with Eureka! Because, I'm sorry, based on the description of each of their kisses, I'm sorry, Eureka and Ander's kiss was better. Eureka and Ander are meant for each other, Brooks. Deal with it. Brooks' mind jolted back to the beach, back to his bloody situation. Lightning struck the sand nearby. He was drenched and shivering up to his calves in the ocean. He started to devise a plan, stopped when he remembered it was useless. The plague would know would prevent Brooks from doing anything that contradicted its desires. Eureka was the answer, the goal that Brooks and his possessor had in common. Her sadness was unfathomable, and Brooks would take a little self-inflicted pain. She was worth anything because she was worth everything. I want to know what you nerdigans are. Are you Team Brooks or Team Ander? I am Team Ander, and I want to know what you nerdigans think of the Seed Bears. And remember, if just in case you haven't read Last Day of Love, the key number for the Seed Bearers is 6. 6 of them have to be alive. Otherwise, at one time. Otherwise, they all die. So just keep that in mind. And what do you think? And remember, the tier line is called Celine's tier line. Remember that. So I want to know what you nerdigans thought of this book. I love tier line. Tier line is awesome. This is a really good book. And I love Last Day of Love too. So anyway, remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Nerdigans Inc. And if you love what I do and want to become a Nerdigan today, please go donate to my Patreon. The link is in the description box below. And if you want to see any more of the shenanigans I cause on the interwebs, please go follow me on Twitter. My handle's in the description box below. And I will see you next time in the first Book Nerdigan rant. I didn't think this would be the first one. I thought it was going to be Battle Angel. But no, this is going to be the first one. It's going to be Waterfall by Laura and Kate. Until next time, Nerdigans, I'll be seeing you later. Bye!